Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have ourselves 3 tracks from an act named Where the Children Play. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a first track on the screen titled Manufactured Regicide. There are 3 to look through today. I should note that this is not the first time I've checked out Where the Children Plays music. It'd be good to hear more. We're going to listen through it from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it. Manufactured Regicide. Nice and heavy, eh? Just turning it up a little bit. Great adjustment there in those drums. That's ferocious. When blast beats are so good. Great change of meter there with the guitars, different time segment. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It really is. It's so intricate and so technical, but like it's still like kind of accessible in a way. So I'm going to be providing an individual sort of song analysis on each of these 3 tracks, as well as an overall one at the end with any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts on a listener's perspective. But I think Manufactured Regicide is about an execution, the person is discussing, you know, watching them drop, you know, getting hung there, the blood. I've been sent a copy of the lyrics outside of this because, to be fair, admittedly, it is a little bit difficult to understand the lyrics because of the growl and the shrieks and everything else that are going. And don't get me wrong, I like this kind of music. I do like my metal. It's just that sometimes the words don't come through as clearly. But like the lyrics themselves are actually fascinating. You know, this is the end. I smell the blade so grim. The roar of the crowd, the bliss, eyes black, no time it's here. Godless era, cell decayed, bloodlet orgy licked off the blade, murdered tyrant, upheld with stakes, enthralled impalement eviscerate. So I think it's simultaneously talking about maybe the manufacturing of the king's death and execution, combined with the euphoria that people feel about that king dying. And I think that the way that it's vocalized throughout this is visceral. It's harsh and gritty and unrelenting, and the music goes alongside that so well. But just the kind of mixture of different kind of visceral, fryish kind of elements that we have there, it's just so works so well within the genre, and the music is colorful enough with the various different guitar riffs and everything that you don't necessarily need a colorful kind of clean vocal melody over top of it. It's fantastic as it is, and they're showing really solid vocal technique with this style of music. You run the risk when you do this kind of style of harder vocals like growls and shrieks and metal, where if you don't pay proper attention to how you perform it, you can lose your ability to do that. It seems like what they're doing, the way they're doing is sustainable, and it just sounds really dope. And the production in general on it, the compression, other elements of it is just fantastic as well. So it's very, very good. The vocals are done neatly. It's good sort of polish on it. And again, I like the fact that we allow the other instruments like the guitar, bass, and drums to sort of have their own sort of time in the sun, and we aren't constantly trying to sort of like color them or sort of overshadow them. The track itself is 3 minutes 40. And I think that given the expression, the how just off the person sounds with the style of music they're doing and the subject matter, it's equally fascinating. It's such a quick track. Although not at the start, because you've got like halftime where you got this kind of really kind of almost doomish kind of guitar after distortion there, some kind of dissonant sort of sub leads, like melodies on the strict guitars with the crash coming in on the kick, and it's heavy as hell, man. The bass coming in at the same time, it's almost like the bells tolling for thee. And we have little bits of flicker and like decoration with some little sort of cymbal shimmers and stuff like that, and adjustments of the arpeggios within the rhythm guitar riffs. But like you get the feeling there's just a real sense of menace immediately. There's no real kind of, supposed to be fair, them going slowly is kind of walking you into the craziness later on, because you have these kind of really kind of like unsettling harmonized guitars over top of an unresolved chord progression with these arpeggios underneath, and you develop it really neatly. We are allowing ourselves to build in a way which is typical for most styles of music, but it's just it's just so heavy and ominous with the note choices, the chord progressions, the tones, and the harshness of a lot of the elements there texturally as well. It sets the mood really well. And for like the first 30 seconds, it takes its time getting into the swing of things, because you're kind of marching upwards to the dock, but awaiting your execution. But once the blast beats come in, the do on the snares and sort of like cymbals, like it bounces off. The drums are just ridiculous. They are so quick, and they are compressed, and they just are forced. They're just forceful. They just smash at you. And there's lots of different quarters and eighths maybe at the start there with occasional 16s, but then you get into your 30 seconds or even double time at that point. It's just relentless. And what works really neatly alongside that is how those guitars tremolo pick. You know, the speed of that is equivalent to those double kicks and blast beats there. And it's just sensible to have that rhythmic unison between elements there to kind of make it sound nice and tight. And it's testament to their ability as musicians to be able to perform that and write that and to think to do that. And there's a wide variety of different ways that we approach, again, the tremolo style of the rhythm playing as well. We don't just play minor and Phrygian modes, so we have diminished and tritone harmonies and all sorts of crazy stuff going on there. No, this is not the track to have any sort of like kind of quirky, unusual sort of major tone triads or melodies here. Or it's just, again, you have some colorful like lead guitar riffs in the upper register there occasionally, like around the 1 minute 20 mark, and it kind of dances and trips around the place. And it's technical death metal, right? It's just it's incredibly technical guitar playing there. It's easy to, especially when you're learning how to play, especially this kind of music, to just kind of think that close enough is good enough. But if you can really pull off the finesse to be able to get things like kind of like super duper tight with the actual instrument performance across the board, all the instruments in time, especially with the bass underneath reinforcing things and going at an equivalent pace, whether it's gallops or blast beats, are just relentless, like unforgiving double kick parts there, machine gun stuff. It's awesome, and it's not the same speed the entire time. There's all these different sections and parts structurally within this piece, which is why when I say this track is 3 minutes 40 right in that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, we're really spoiled for the amount that we have within it. It really does seem to go through all the different chapters in terms of someone going through the realization of their own execution and self-destruction there, as well as what other people truly think of them, the kind of horror that comes with that. And there's like a crazy guitar solo as well around like the 1 minute 57 mark there, where we feel like we've already had enough kind of ferocity and velocity from those strings, but we just explore the upper register of the fretboard, and it's just almost kind of thrashy in its approach. A great little bit, and there's some great sort of tremolo wow kind of technique there, which makes it kind of fun, and there's legato technique and the drums are behind it as well at the same time. They're just vicious, and it's just you just feel like it just keeps going up and up and up, like you get into the top of the roller coaster. To have that kind of broken unison chord at the end of the run there with the blast beats reintroduced to it, it does make us wonder where we're going to go next. Part of what makes this track work so well alongside the intriguing structure and the chops and starts is because the track kind of lurches backwards and forwards between those different cadences and speeds. Even at the end of the piece there, we kind of switch up the time signature a little bit, just make it a bit more sort of like discombobulated there. We're really not sure how to approach it. There's a part there where it just pauses and then just goes forward and then pauses and goes forward. It really is a kind of push-pull approach there. It's really not only messing with the listener's expectations there, but also just to use dynamics effectively, to have those pauses, have sort of that dead space or that pregnant pause, and then boom, slap into it. It's just a great way of cleansing the palette. But yeah, phenomenal string skipping represented at the end there. Lots of different guitar ideas there. The bass, wonderfully supportive in the low end, and the drums just absolutely just going batshit insane. And just effectively, it's just a really solid effort all around. Not out of place thematically. The minors and tritones kind of tell the story that you need to. It's incredibly depraved and kind of it's just it's unrelenting, and it wants to kind of kick your teeth in. And I just think, especially considering the subject matter with the execution, the manufacture, Regicide, etc., it mirrors the frustration, the anger, the hatred that is exemplified, as well as the kind of bewildering state of things and the manic nature of it effectively. I think all the different angles that I mentioned structurally make sense of that. Studio production, you can hear the various guitar, vocal, bass, drum takes clearly. The way the guitar is a sidetracked on a rhythm, nice and big and chunky and full. Bass, nice and rotund on the low end. The drums sidechain and punch through with nice bus compression on the drums as well, so they aren't too sort of dynamic, because in this genre, especially with how consistent a lot of the really fast stuff is, if it's too changeable, it becomes a bit distracting. And the vocals, again, produced well enough for the growls and grit and fry to come through very, very effectively. Nice and loud pumping. Let's get on to track 2. The Day Wears Black. Let's do it. What is that, drop B? Or is it 8 strings, I think? Those power chords are vicious, dude. Great legato technique there. Great use of harmonics there. This is fun. I'm actually impressed with how tight those palm mutes on the low string are. That's good production. very cool response there. Yeah, so like I'm at the point now where I review stuff like this and I think I don't really know how you could improve it. And I know that kind of defeats the purpose of a review in a sense, because if I don't know how I can review it or how you can improve it, then like what's the point of talking about it? Um and today I would say maybe the point is to celebrate it, you know? Because I feel like this is phenomenal metal. Like I like a lot of what's going on here, and I'm not glazing because I feel like I'm obligated to. It's just very, very good. I've got the lyrics here again, kindly provided by Where the Children Play, and this is some pretty feral stuff, to be fair. This is definitely not for kids. It's kind of one of the kind of things about the kind of harsher kind of growls and shrieks and stuff like that, is that if the words don't come through clearly, you have like the C word and you don't get someone getting offended about it, I suppose. Not that I have an issue with the language. I know some people have issues with the language. I think this is basically about someone killing someone over and over again because of what they've done to you, and them sort of like coming back, like wishing you could kind of kill them again and again and again, realizing what that person did to you. They want to turn the clock back so they can you can kill so that you can kill them again. You know, destroy the swine they are and feel alive with it. It's incredibly vivid imagery there. It's horrific stuff. It really is. And I always kind of feel bad because I listen to this kind of music and I think, man, the people who wrote it, I wonder if this is stuff they legitimately can relate to, or if these are stories they've kind of created to kind of write the music for. And if they've gone through stuff where they felt like this, I mean, like, damn, man. Unfortunately, that's where some of the best music comes from, eh? It's real fucked up shit. I love the way that it's been expressed, though, from a vocal textural perspective there. The intensity, especially the call and responses where go onto the sides of the stereo field, just how vicious it gets. The reverb, the going on the side there, it's just wild. It's just so aggressive and intense. You go forwards and back, forwards and back. And I just, similar comments otherwise to the previous song there, just the intensity, the immense kind of the nature to it, the tone. It's carried by the really colorful and intriguing instrumental parts, but the storytelling is vivid and important. And I like the fact that we just clearly put 100% into it on the microphone. And again, just solid technique as well. And we adjust the rhythmic phrasing and cadence of certain lines as well for different parts to sort of segment and differentiate, which is good. We weren't just kind of being monotonous with the groove of it. We were aware and had chemistry with the elements around us to kind of seg a niche for things. And we also allowed the instruments within the track to have their time in the sun as well. Structurally, 3 minutes 30, an incredible use of that 3.5 minutes. Absolutely no complaints on my part. Absolutely. Real estate was used wonderfully. Just from the start there, you think the first track was heavy, you know, manufactured Regicide, and then just go down to the 8th string, it just thuds. And I was really impressed with the tightness of the alternate picked palm muted kind of chug elements that we had in those rhythm sections of this track. Because it's really difficult not just to do that, but also to get it tight from a production perspective. Just the way they're presented is really good. They're throaty and gritty and kind of like filthy sounding, but they just thud and shudder and do the exact job they need to do within this. And it's kind of lazy, kind of like interesting modular mode coded kind of like down, where it kind of betrays the minor leading a little bit, working with like the Dorian or something like that. But then you just really commit to the bit as the track goes on forth, and you go through a variety of different, utterly just ridiculous, oh man, just halftime and double time parts on the drum. There's just so much to discuss, and I got to try and keep it succinct. But I'm liking that we're kind of starting these tracks, introducing the instruments across both of these. You know, there's snare and tom fills, and we're exploring the drum kit there and adjusting and cutting it in bits to not make it too sort of generic or uninteresting. But we kind of slowly guide the listener into the feral nature of things. And then when we get into that 28-second mark, there you got the chugs and the double kick just pushing forward there. The 16s, it's just brutal. It's great because you have a halftime feel with the snare patterns, but the drums fill in the gaps, like the kicks fill in the gaps really neatly. The cymbals and the chinas and everything like that bashing away there. The guitar is in time with that sort of tight performance as well. And I like the squealies, like the pinch harmonics. I think the pinch harmonics are nice. There's some sort of like reverse kind of like up strum like downstrum to try to, whichever you take it, natural harmonics, like kind of like a hardcore kind of approach to that as well in the breakdown sections. And it's such a it's just incredibly tight mix. So the music kind of chokes a little bit with everything kind of combined within each other. And I think considering the subject matter, what we're discussing here, the intensity of the vocal performance, it makes sense that this is that kind of overwhelming. And I like that we even include some like around the 1 minute 12 mark, so do kind of unconventional melodies that might not be totally normal within a minor landing or Phrygian mode or kind of like really kind of tritone oriented track like this. But it kind of makes it sound more kind of like a horror soundtrack because the major is unexpected. It's unsettling. And then we have our kind of blast beats and other bits there. You know, we don't just rely on like the halftime or like the double kicks the entire time. We change up the pace and meter of it. But it's just, it's segmented in a way where you get used to the idea, and then where the children play, take it away again, and then boop, new thing. You know, they don't let you get bored. And there's this nice kind of, again, catch and like pull, push and pull of like chug, 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 and then we had legato technique and all these kind of kind of fun ideas on the guitars there. I dig that within each an individual kind of loop there, we're messing with the kind of like the flexibility of it. That lead guitar solo or some of the sort of harmonized guitar parts, just the neoclassical approach to those is kind of reminds me of Death Clock a little bit. And that's a compliment. I like Metalocalypse. But just again, a similar kind of interesting triplet feel to some of the lead passages around the 2 minute mark there. I like that we use triplets more on this one, that we change the cadence of those 16ths. 6 into sort of like 16th triplets, maybe go from 30 seconds to 16th triplets there. Just a very easy way of establishing a different sort of groove or sub groove there, and amongst the craziness or zestiness of everything else. But there's no real point in this track where it kind of tries to hold your hand and let you know that it's going to be okay. It very much is just, it's oriented on destroying your eardrums and just kind of taking you down a notch. You know, you're not even the person they're talking to like directly. You kind of get the feeling you're not anyways, but it's just so oh man. And what's really cool about those ending vocals is they go down in their lower vocal range for those growls, and when you harmonize the shrieks with the growls, it's just oppressive, dude. It's just kind of blows you away, man. And to kind of almost this kind of genty kind of early 2010s groove to the palm mutes and the, you know, the pinch harmonics and the kind of sounds like at the end there. It's just a fun way to end the track there after the intensity of everything else. I don't feel like I'm doing this music justice. There's so many other little intricacies in there, but ultimately there are some stylistic connections between these two tracks there, but they're distinct enough that I also want to mention that thematically, you look at the lyrics and then you listen to the chords and the different melodies they're playing and the tone of the instruments, the kind of the vicious nature of those distorted guitars, the bass and drums, the speed and the intent and the force behind it. You can understand immensely that all these different thought processes going on with the structure of it there. And any kind of like, again, parallel majors or major leaning stuff is incidental and meant to creep you out. Just we use things, we break the rules in a way that is creatively endearing and is not a note out of place. Similar comment with the studio production again. I mentioned the side parts of the vocals there being like notched in the frequency spectrum really neatly. Just it's just another really solid effort from these guys. Guitars, bass, drums, vocals really present, balanced in stereo field. I think there's also some sub drops, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. There might be some sub drops, just the way because it's just filthy, it's just doom, it kind of hits like in a sledgehammer. If that's the case, we're using sub drops, that's totally fine. You know, it's great for a extra bit of oomph in different parts. But yeah, no, just not overproduced, well played, a distinct tone, fantastic. And finally, last but not least, the Black Cross. It's pensive. I like the use of the scale here as well. And how they go from side to side with the guitars. It's so meandering. Oh, it's beautiful, dude. Lots of parallel majors. Those strings on the side of it. I mean, that flew by, to be fair. Really unusual last chord of that progression. I think it's meant to kind of sound unsettling or indicate that things are not going to resolve sensibly. I think also it's made to sound a little bit less generic than if you'd kind of gone to like a normal triad within a diatonic or something like that. It's cool. It's cool. It's nice. It kind of reminds me of Opeth a little bit with some of their sort of phrasings. But that was a Black Cross, number 3 for today. I think that this track is about someone missing someone so much. You know, every time I remember you, the trigger feels heavy as lead, as the thoughts in my head screaming to end it all. I get the impression they're just struggling without this person in their life and wondering if they're going to end up on all, you know, like with a splatter on 4 walls and a body bag. It's really dark, horrific stuff. And again, I hope that if the people who made this track are going through this, I hope that they get the help and support that they need. I'm not being facetious, I mean that genuinely. I think that, you know, it's seriously heavy stuff. But I think that it's nonetheless that kind of harsh vocal style there, I think fits the exasperation that is suggested within this piece by the vocalist. I think it's just a really sort of sensible way of approaching the subject matter expression wise. Again, I'm not going to sort of repeat what I've said about the techniques. I feel like across the board it's fine. This track is a lot more colorful than the previous tracks we've had there. It's a slower kind of track in the sense that it really is kind of more sort of like, I think, trying to sort of think things through on our own and try and make sense of it. It's also a longer track, so you get more time to sort of appreciate what's going on with like an extended guitar solo as well as potentially verses and choruses, and an outro section there with wonderful sort of key and string sections. The really kind of somber, tender guitar line at the start there has a kind of dustiness and graininess to it, like we're opening a book that's like 100 years old and learning the story from it. Again, more cymbal shimmers and the drums kind of gradually easing us into it. You know, we've got that kind of pattern at this point, this kind of recognition. Although, to be fair, the drums don't ever really change themselves up too much throughout the entirety of this track. It's a very kind of slow piece, kind of working with those kicks and snare patterns, as well as a variety of different other sort of grooves that we don't just do the same beat the entire time, but it's just less kind of less agile than previous ones. In fact, for like the first sort of like 20, 30 seconds or so, it is mainly sort of like cymbals and kicks and sort of decorations and little kind of accents on it. So, you know, you get the different guitar takes on either side of the stereo field there, and they decorate, go backwards and forwards, and it's got this kind of almost kind of like the Japanese scale, if I'm not mistaken. There are some really unusual chord and sort of like scale choices throughout this piece in general. There are like some guitar arpeggios that are major coded, major oriented there, and it's like, why is this the case? You know, like, why are we doing it like this? It's like a weird kind of major that almost seems perverse considering the subject matter, but maybe that's the point. Like, especially if you've heard more of Where the Children plays music before, you kind of get the feeling that this is not the kind of happy sort of upbeat track that might be sort of insinuating, but then it doesn't really cater to the root note either. It's just it's kind of moded to a different chord and it's doing something kind of fun on top. We're coming on the minute with like the very black metal sort of toned distorted guitars with some kind of gritty arpeggios, the drums sort of rolling forward with the tom fills, and you kind of get more familiar, I suppose, with what we've had beforehand. And we adjust things and have sort of syncopated grooves and stuff like that. But it does go back to that sort of main meter that we had at the beginning with sort of the main sort of foundations of the drum kit, the bass guitar. But we also have other instruments as well, you know. It just takes a while to get to those, you know. We seem like we're in a very comfortable place with the various guitar takes, bass, and drums, almost like we're saying, hey, don't worry, we're not straying too far from what we're used to. But I think when we get to the 2-minute mark and go into the chorus section, we've got this kind of choirs or pads on the sides there. It kind of becomes this kind of almost sort of weirdly magical, sort of surreal situation where the color makes it sound very pretty. And I like the note choices and the sub leads there alongside the guitar vocals. But it doesn't commit to a major tone immediately. There are some sort of maybe some chromatic chords or parallel majors and minors in that kind of twist and turn and writhe and just don't let you fully commit to feeling like you're in safe hands. And we have more of a straightforward sort of A, B, maybe even C sort of side kind of structure to this piece. Once you get sort of like comfortable with those main few riffs though. But I think it's primarily because in this one, we've done a lot of tracks where there's been a lot of composition diversity and sort of big changes in sort of the groove and the feel of it. I think here, especially when we're starting to introduce other instruments there, allowing space for those to breathe is important. And the lead guitars become more adept as we go later on. But what I kind of have to appreciate is the more quote unquote melodic kind of vocal oriented solo here where the lead guitar isn't shredding and doing a whole lot of legato and crazy techniques and bends and sort of taps and pinches and stuff like that. It's trying to sort of be almost kind of balladesque, I suppose, like we're kind of crying out for that help or that assistance across the void. And I like that it goes a bit more slowly in time with a lot of the sort of cymbal hits that we have as well as the strummed power chords, because the power chords underneath the chorus sections especially are like less in that low range of the days where's black, and it's more kind of it's less trying to sort of rip your face off, I suppose. Again, there are uncomfortable chords or sort of flat seconds or sort of like moments where things get very kind of gritty and kind of touchy, but overall we're trying to be a bit more sort of accessible, I think, with the overall approach to this track with its instrumental layering, the composition itself. And I think that if you weren't aware of what the lyrics meant, you would probably see this as a far less dark track maybe than the previous one was had, even though that's not really the case. When we go into the big kind of choir section around the 4-minute 50 mark, then we have the strings and the guitars and everything kind of raising up. It's incredibly compelling there. You're kind of put in this kind of clutch, not sure what's going to happen next. But as the keys kind of fade us out with I think I've actually got like a harpsichord and some keys in that last part there, some flutters and strings there, really kind of rounding things out after that climax. You don't really know how things ended. It's left kind of like up to the imagination, unfortunately. But you get a feeling that there's been some sort of release. It's minor oriented with those arpeggios on the right side. But it also, again, has that unconventional sort of similar pattern to the bass line and sort of triads that previous parts have had, where you're left with a question and sort of uncertainty in your mind. And I think that it's really clever on Where the Children Play, where they maybe wanted to make a less affronting piece without kind of quote unquote selling out or kind of phoning it in. And I think they handled that very well here. They included, again, these extra strings and keys and harpsichord and sort of choirs and pad parts alongside the guitar, bass, and drums in a way where I thought, especially with the vocal style, was going to kind of go into it like a black metal track where things went into blast beats again. But I've got to admire that. I think in this situation, especially thematically, where we've got this kind of major tones and parts, like you could go for really heavy, ridiculously quick kind of major stuff, but I think a lot of the magic of this is their ability to put these different chords together and then to sort of transition like that. And so when you're left to appreciate the journey you go on with the slow dance here. I mean, the lyrics, we dance in flames together, we dance to death so far, it's poetic, the Black Cross last serenade. You've got lyrics in here which are talking to a ballad or a serenade there. It's meant to be a kind of a bittersweet thing there. It's not meant to be like, again, trying to kill someone and then turn the clock back and then kill them again. So I think the chord choices with the major tones and the minor parts at the start there, but with the kind of parallel majors for some of the sort of like arpeggios, the guitars at the start, and the lush nature of the choices of instruments in general with how they sort of amalgamated was effective, and just studio production across the board was really cool. I like the dynamic range at the start there when things are a bit quieter there, things allowing to sort of like be in the ether there, the panning decisions of the guitars on the left or right side there, the way as you got to the end of the track, things really built up in the volume of it and then went back out for the piano and again the kind of more orchestral elements. It has a lot of life and vigor to it. They haven't squeezed it in the bus compression limiting. Just generally well leveled and presented. Vocals present and just honestly just a really solid performance across those guitar parts, especially as well on the drums. I think the drums pocketing a little bit suited the track stylistically to not overshadow this kind of the pace of it. And I think the guitars knowing to do sort of like a neoclassical kind of flutters and legatos and hammers, pull-offs and other elements there, as well as work more with the I'm rambling now. Good song. Good song. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of these 3 tracks from an act named Where the Children Play, titled The Black Cross, as well as Manufactured Regicide and The Day Was Black. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall analysis of these 3 tracks, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think these tracks are about? Manufactured Regicide is about a king witnessing his own execution and the fervor surrounding it. The Day Was Black is about wanting to kill someone and wanting to kill them so badly that you want to do it again, turn the clock back. And the Black Cross, I think, is about seeing the cross and sort of like wondering if you are going to be able to sort of survive this kind of longingness that you have. That's my very, like, again, I've provided more, because I've spoken about these tracks in depth and length. I've given more sort of like elaborate descriptions of each as best I understand them at those point in time. I should note that vocally, while I didn't necessarily get the lyrics through clearly for each of these tracks, and I'm thankful to Where the Children Play for providing a copy of the lyrics to me, I nonetheless thought that the vocal stylings, the growls, the shrieks, the fries, etc. were wonderfully, they're a fantastic choice for this. I just thought it was fantastic how we did things in terms of the vocal style within this track. It suited the aggression, how ferocious and feisty a lot of the subject matter was very well. And I think it just suited the subject matter and the tone. I also think it suited the tone of the instruments, like the guitar, bass, and drums, as well as the style of music that we're doing. We showed really solid vocal tech as well, very comfortable in our head and chest voice there, and we showed sustainable vocal technique with that kind of grittier style that I feel is just going to keep doing this for a long time to come. We managed to sort of make it work regardless of whether we're doing a sort of more balladesque stuff like the Black Cross, as well as the other sort of more kind of manic tracks like Manufactured Regicide and The Day Was Black. To be able to get that to work requires a fundamental understanding of music theory and composition, and we had that here. These tracks ranged from about 3.5 minutes all through to 5 minutes to 15. And I thought generally these were it's just wonderful in the sense that we managed to just fill them with so many interesting guitar, bass, and drum ideas. I'm going to talk about the instruments across the board. The guitar with a variety of different sort of like clean, sort of like, or maybe kind of chorus, sort of like rotary oscillated, kind of like arpeggios, strummed parts, melodies there. When the distorted parts came in there, we had lots of power chords and down-tuned elements there, and some gritty kind of textures there with some dissonant kind of flat seconds, or even some sort of parallel major arpeggios for a bit of spice in the Black Cross there. Lots of tritonal and major and minor elements explored there. Lots of uncomfortable diminished chords as well there. We had harmonized parts where they fit off each other, just sort of horrific sounding, but so cool, especially with everything else going on. And the lead parts we had a variety of different sort of like mode, or we played around with our modes and scales really effectively here. Phrygian mode as well, flat seconds, harmonic and moloch minors, the use of the Japanese scale maybe in the Black Cross. Just really cool how we could not only do the really sort of virtuosic stuff and like manufactured, as well as the Dayways Black, very fast playing, lots of interesting sort of tap and tremolo work and vibrato hammer-ons and blossom bends and stuff like that. But also we can play a bit more slowly in the Black Cross and have more of a kind of a balladesque kind of approach, where it's more of a voice in the mix and going in a similar kind of rhythm and flow to some of the drum and surrounding elements within the arrangement there. I like that we explored the entirety of the guitar fretboard there. We had lots of different guitar sounds there. We had palm mutes and pull-out and pinch harmonics and natural harmonics and all sorts of chirpy little ideas. And we just knew to chug and do those kind of really really heavy parts we needed to. And we also had great use of space with those guitar parts there. We would just take the guitar away sometimes and allow the strings and pianos to be there at the end of the Black Cross. So altogether, very good. The bass overall was kind of low-key throughout the majority of this, but I nonetheless appreciate it and it can feel its presence there. Very sort of supportive of a lot of the guitar and drum elements within the track. They typically work at root notes, although when it was out there, it explored the fretboard a little bit and found some gaps occasionally. Did exactly what it needs to, nice and tight, filling out the frequency spectrum neatly, and just especially in those lower tuned parts of like Dayways Black, it just hung on you, dude. And the drums. The drums were just ridiculous. You had a wide variety of different quarter eighths, triplets, 16ths, and then 32nds, and there were blast beats and double kick parts and all sorts of triplet and 16 triplet kind of like switch ups with the double kicks. Lots of fantastic drum fills there work, and all the toms and everything like that. Breakdowns and half time and normal time and double meter parts there. And then we didn't have really drums at all in certain parts there as well, because we just sort of pause. We had a great sort of awareness of how to have the drums and the rhythm guitars and time as well as the bass there, so things were really heavy when they needed to be. But other parts, we just flew, man. It was just wild, dude. It's just so tight as well, especially manufactured Regicide. Those drums are just ridiculous, and just again, when you consider the subject matter and what the kind of like feel or approach or sort of like lyrics we had there, and the way the vocals were done, everything was very good. When we had those kind of pads come into the Black Cross there, they sounded like a choir surrounding us, almost like a spiritual awakening or experience going upwards there. They harmonized neatly with the surrounding elements within chord progressions and such. The keys at the end of the track were very sort of pensive and reflected a quieter kind of approach to some of the thoughts put across by the guitar parts earlier on in the piece. And the strings sounded just incredibly sad and kind of dire there, but also kind of weirdly beautiful in a way. That they mirrored the feeling of hopelessness, I think, that we were experiencing without committing too much to the bit there. I just feel like we had a wonderful array of different elements in the Black Cross especially, and it's nice to hear where the children playing with new elements and new styles. Thematically minor oriented, although to be fair, most of these tracks, because spoken about the individual themes, they typically suited the subject matter for what we're discussing there. But I thought it was really cool in the Black Cross especially, where we had those kind of weird parallel major chords where you typically expect the minor. We had these also uncomfortable moments in the Dayways Black where it was like major when everything was very dismal and dire and horrific, and so it sounded creepy like a horror film. We not only knew to choose the right chords and notes for the different parts of a track and to adjust our bass lines and chord progressions per part of the thing, but we also knew when to break the rules and to add sort of unexpected elements within it to sort of further elevate the experience, and it was wonderful there. I think for the most part it was heavy as hell. The instruments were played wonderfully, no note out of place, just incredibly tight, and again, you cannot get away with doing this kind of music, especially with the faster stuff, unless it is that tight. they smashed it. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering was phenomenal. I loved the tone of the vocals in the mix, even though I didn't get all the words through clearly. Works really well for the style of music, very happy with it. The guitars, bass, drums, strings, pads, and the keys at the end of the Black Cross were put forward really neatly. There was interesting use of panning with some elements such as the guitars going backwards and forwards in the Black Cross, rhythm guitars nicely sidetracked, drums explored the stereo field really neatly with the various toms, cymbals, and drums. Yep, guitar, bass, drums, everything niched nicely within the frequency spectrum without any resonant frequencies. There was dynamic range to it. Things weren't the same loudness all the time from both the compositional and production perspective, but when they needed to be, such as with the drum bus, they were absolutely handled. And it was nice and loud without pumping. And it was nice and loud with pumping, especially in those breakdown parts and the chuggier elements of the bus compression and limiting was handled. No applicable constructive critique from me. I just feel very, very satisfied from a general listener's perspective with listening to where the children plays work. I just feel like they're good to go. If I was going to listen to metal on my own time, I'd listen to stuff like this. Granted, I can't necessarily relate to the subject matter, and I do hope that everything's okay on their end, and I mean that genuinely, by the way, because I've been listening to music metal for a long, long time, and it's some people write some music from very dark places, but overall, really wonderful stuff. And I wish them all the best of luck in future, because thank you for watching my review of these 3 tracks from the action and Where the Children Play, titled Manufactured Regicide, as well as The Day Wears Black and The Black Cross. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on, and I will catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out!